This is the behind the scenes of my recent short, Survive the Human Invasion. A fun little yarn where the zombies now have to try and fight off the humans versus the other way around. I wanted to show the behind the scenes as some people had asked how I went about doing the animation, and as you can see I do work with a lot of 3D compositing, but I also wanted to show some of the techniques that, well, are rather traditional in the realm of stop motion and claymation of how I went about doing this. So sit back and enjoy this behind the scenes segment on the short. Now, every time I start out a project, I have to draw out my character. It's just second nature for me. I actually started out drawing and started sculpting second. But doing an illustration is a good way of reference, so then when you actually start sculpting on the exposed wire or whatever way you want to do this, you actually have a frame of reference of how your character will look, how they'll be toned, etc. Putting all the pieces of clay together, and then finally afterwards touching things up, utilizing all the various tools. You can't do it all with your fingers, but if you wanted to try to at least use your pinky finger, it's the least callous of your fingers that you're going to use, as well as having the various materials on hand to actually continue to work with the clay, because the clay will dry up over time. So mineral oil, Vaseline, olive oil, they all work. Now, as for set building, I decided to do forced perspective on this one. I actually had a decent amount of clay that I wanted to utilize for the ground as well as buildings and whatnot, and nothing is here is to scale. But talking about how I work in compositing and I utilize the green screen, I wanted to use this red glow to give the indication of buildings on fire or just giving a malevolent atmosphere. But as you can see, it's sort of messing with my green cloth backdrop. Now, the easiest way to fix this is to just have extra lighting. And this lighting actually is adjustable, so it's actually a college desktop lamp that you can move around easily. So I just illuminate that background without it affecting the lighting on the foreground. Therefore, I'm able to actually have the scene the way I would like it to be portrayed. And something too, when you're doing lighting like this, always do tests, try and figure out if it's going to work. And something too is also with the things that you are working with. I mentioned that I wanted to try some unique stuff here, and so I'm working with a die-cast toy here of a half-track from World War II era. However, the tires and the track itself is getting stuck in the clay. And so one way of kind of mitigating this is to actually use water. That'll not only remove tracks from the previous day's shootings, but it will also help to I should say a smooth and solid surface, but solid in the sense that after you've touched it up and worked on it, don't start animating on it right away. I will actually do something in the meantime while it further hardens. I mean, you're still going to get tracks, but this will at least keep, the clay from actually getting into the toy. So with that said, here's a brief little time lapse of me actually animating the half track. Now let's talk a little bit about the set background itself. Now what I will do sometimes is I will make 2 or 3 different layers to composite, then take a photo of that to utilize as my singular background. But this time I chose to stick with forced perspective and working primarily with clay buildings. All I really do to make them is I take a little bit of mineral oil, kind of liven up the clay a bit, and I just try to do a basic square shape, which sounds easier than it really is, because if you are a perfectionist, you're going to say, nah, that doesn't work, so you have to utilize some sculpting tools. And this is what I think can really speed up your process. You can start to see where things are standing, but something too, you could take like a flat surface like a cardboard box and kind of press the clay against that as well, using your tool still to refine the edges. Now with this, I use the other side, and I kind of create like little ridges and stuff on the side, you know, sort of like a facade decoration. I'm kind of modeling somewhat in the late 40s, early 50s, so I definitely had some photos and things to work off of from that. You know, so always make sure you have your references so you're following something. But if you just want to be stylistic and do things your way, there's nothing wrong with that as well. But kind of showing the various ways you can go about doing. You can do deep cuts to create the sense of depth, or you could do sort of like elongated to larger windows. Personally, I like doing this one where I make larger skyscrapers in the distance, and I just kind of like to dot the windows in. So having it all situated on the construction paper, I then go ahead and move it and the figure I'm animating in small increments to create the illusion of a panning camera shot. As you can see, it takes more time to prepare than it does to actually animate. I guess that's the fun of stop motion. Something else that I chose to do with some of my characters here was this soldier I had, who I didn't really feel like making an entirely different sculpt, but you know, had decided to use the same body for a different character. But it looks kind of weird because I have him with a sort of enclosed turtleneck, so to speak. So I just took a little bit of flesh-colored clay. I have a whole ton of it on hand just for these kind of situations. And just rolling up a little bit of the same color clay of the suit and creating sort of like a seam line, so to speak. It sort of works. As you can see in this, it doesn't entirely cover the neck, but at least for shots including shadows, I think it came out pretty well. 28 days later, and now we can put our training to the test.
Yes, and now I can release this pent-up anger and rage I am building against these zombie malcontents, to crush them as the monster that I am. Okay then.
However, animating characters on the same body means you do have to animate them separately, then composite them in editing, which means you have to be very serious about your timing, about how long both pieces of animation are so that they coincide, and also what the characters are actually doing in moments when another character is talking, mannerisms, etc. That can be a bit challenging. But once you get started and you actually get into the animation process itself, everything just kind of falls into place, I feel, if you have planned everything ahead of time. But at the same time, I think working with green screen has made things very easy for me. I basically just take a character, put them right here on the set with either a rig or some kind of, you know, lump of clay with metal wire to kind of hold them up. This is all, you know, stuff to make things easy so I can tell my story as quickly as possible. As you can see here, this is another one of my little hacks that I do where I have hands that I actually plop on and off. But those two, they can take a bit to have to retouch, but I think the mineral oil in this instance revitalizes the clay, keeps it from, I shouldn't say that plasticine clay hardens, it gets stiff. And utilizing mineral oil helps to lessen that stiffness in the animation process. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this little sneak behind the scenes. I wouldn't exactly say I was aiming to do a tutorial, but funny enough, the whole reason I actually even got this whole project underway was my intention was to actually do a tutorial while actually just doing a generic short, and it just kind of ballooned into a whole new idea, something that I hadn't even thought of until I just started making the characters, and it's been a lot of fun. You know, oftentimes I have ideas stacked up that I want to either revisit or do, you know, sometime down the line. And I have one major project that's on the way, but I think this was just kind of like a nice exercise, and I hadn't really done a proper behind the scenes, video on my work, so I hope you all enjoyed, and make sure to leave in the comments if there's anything you'd like me to explain more about in future projects, or if there are any tutorials that you would like me to cover as far as the realm of stop motion. However, I feel like I have to pay it forward because I learned a lot of this stuff from experts and individuals in the field, and in the description I will leave links to videos that I have seen that further explain the process of smoothing and sculpting clay with stop motion puppets, if clay is the medium you wish to use when going into this medium. So with that said, make sure to check out those videos, and I will also put a link to the full video of the short that I completed, so make sure to watch that, give it a like, and if you do enjoy it, subscribe, share, on other social media. I definitely appreciate, the praise and exposure, so it would be great to see other people enjoy my video and my work as well. So hope to see you all soon, and I will have a new video coming out sometime by the end of the month. Until then, you all enjoy the rest of your week.